coordinates all the different ways that you feel and experience things. That's called synesthesia. And the whole total feel of your body is important for you to be able to feel your place in space. And so it's important to your balance as well. The particular organism that's important for your balance is the vestibular system, which is in the inner ear. And it has these little stones that are supposed to come down, and these little hairs. And if your vestibular system gets worn down or doesn't work right, you can feel really dizzy. Like, if you go on a roller coaster, you can mess up your vestibular system for a short time and be really dizzy as you come out of it. Or if you spin, you will get really dizzy. Well, when your vestibular system wears down, some of these things can happen spontaneously. And that too, is often a question of disease more than a question of aging. Your muscles will tend to weaken unless you exercise more, and maybe anyway, because there are limits to what you can really do. Your body sways a bit more because it may take a little bit more for you to register the signals that are necessary for your balance, and that makes you more likely to fall. But the main reason that people fall is because they trip over things. So if you have older people, and even for yourself, it's good to take all the tripping things. Rugs are dangerous. You need to tighten them, to glue them so that they don't move. Medications also are often in the elderly a cause for balance problems. For other people too, but older people tend to take a bit more meds, Taste and smell. Well, it's not clear if taste itself changes. It may not. But smell may change more. But there aren't many studies, neither in taste nor in smell. Though it seems that smell does maybe weaken in a number of people as they age. Smell is not well studied. But if your smell, diminishes, then food does not taste good, because the good part of the taste of the food is the smell. Like when you have a cold and your nose is totally plugged up, food is not tasting good. And then, when food is not tasting good, you don't want to eat, you don't want to eat, you may get malnourished, etc. And now we'll look at vital function like the heart and the vascular system and the lungs and the respiratory system, and we'll look at the aging changes, the diseases, and what that does to you psychologically. Well, changes to the cardiovascular system can start quite early, certainly in the 40s. There can be some fat deposits around the heart. That's normal. But the kind of more important thing is there is a thickening and stiffening of the heart muscles and valves, because there is less heart muscle and more connective tissue, so that makes the heart stiffer, less effective, and not as able to adapt as easily. And similarly, there's a stiffening of the walls of the arteries because of calcium deposit and calcification. And that happens to practically everyone. Here are some pictures that show you how a young heart versus an old heart react to exercise. So you can see at rest how these hearts are similar, but you can see that during vigorous exercise, the older heart can't keep up very well. So even at rest, it is bigger, enlarged, because it has a hard time moving this much blood that fast. And then at the end of the heartbeat, it doesn't really get smaller in the way that the younger heart does. So it's because it's just moving slower. It's not able to follow up with the really vigorous exercise in the same manner. In addition to these processes that I just described that really don't particularly kill you, there is also disease, such as congestive heart failure, angina pectoris, when the heart hurts, heart attack, atherosclerosis, stroke, hypertension, hypotension. How do you prevent that sort of stuff? The only type of prevention is to try for your whole life, including starting where you are now, to have a healthy lifestyle, to not drink too much, not eat too much, not smoke, exercise, regularly, have a good diet, those kinds of things. Respiration or breathing. Actually, if you are 20 and in this class, your decline in capacity has started. Capacity is the amount of air that you can get into your lungs with one breath. And also the efficiency of the oxygen-CO2 exchange slows down. The changes begin in the 20s. Now, that too, though it happens, it isn't a disease and it doesn't kill you either, and you may not notice that much difference, except you get winded, faster. Some of that we don't know. Maybe it's due to the environment. There are a lot of pollutants there, smoke and smog and chemicals, and maybe that is what is affecting our lungs. There are also diseases like emphysema and chronic bronchitis and asthma, that will make these processes worse. Then we get into the reproductive system, and we can ask what reproductive changes occur in women and in men, and what does that do to them psychologically. Well, here's a table that compares males and females. And you can see that, both in males and females, fertility decreases after the age of 25 or so. Maximum fertility is at about 18, and it decreases slowly, But then women reach what is called the climacteric, that is a stop of their reproductive ability, and they have a clear menopause, which is when their periods stop. Whereas with male, there's nothing that clear. They continue to be somewhat fertile all through their lives, except that it's less and less. There is hormonal changes in both males and females. In males, it's testosterone. In females, it's estrogen and progesterone. There are progressive changes in the sexual organs and in performance. Males, both groups, take a longer time to reach climax. Males have more often impotency. Females, their organs may not lubricate the same way, etc. This is progressive, and it doesn't, it requires a little bit of adjustment, but it doesn't make things awful. The important thing in sexuality, as people go through adulthood and age, is the importance of the relationship. And isn't that true with everybody? And in addition now, specific to males, are prostate issues. Part of normal aging is an enlargement of the prostate that can then block the urinary tract, and surgical procedures are necessary. Males are also very susceptible to prostate cancer. Now, it's true that females, can also get cancers related to their reproductive organs, but the prostate cancer will occur in practically all males if they live old enough. But it is very, very, very slow moving. So lots of times you don't have to do anything about that. Now, what changes occur in the nervous system, in the neurons, and in their ability to communicate with each other, etc.? And what happens to the autonomic nervous system? The autonomic nervous system is automatic. It's like breathing and sweating and sleeping and all of those kinds of things. Well, here you can see a normal neuron, has this axon, it has the dendrites and the terminal, and the information goes from the dendrite to the terminal, and then the terminal communicates with the next neuron, and so on. What changes are normal? Well, it's hard to know. When people age, they develop more neurons with neurofibrillary tangles, and you can see an example of that in the pink picture. And the different the axon and the dendrites get kind of curled up. It's not very good. They don't really know of what effect that has. It's not very clear. People can have those and see no effect, but they're also part of processes like Alzheimer's. There can be amyloid plaques, and that is, you see it in the small picture there. They are present in Alzheimer's. There also can be some of them without Alzheimer's. Neurons can adapt to the loss and the death of some neurons by creating more dendrites to create new ways to communicate with other neurons, and their terminals, their synapses, can become more effective. So neurons do have, as you learned in the previous unit, a fair amount of plasticity. Do the neurotransmitters change? Well, we don't really know how they change normally. We actually don't know all that much about how the neurotransmitters work, even though we've identified a lot of them. In Parkinson's disease, there is a pathological decline in dopamine. We know that. In Alzheimer's, we know there is a pathological decline in acetylcholine. In normal aging, we don't really know. There may be a little bit less dopamine, a little bit less acetylcholine, a little bit less of something else. We aren't really not terribly far in terms of understanding the neurochemistry of the brain. In the autonomic nervous system, the regulation of hot and cold is harder for older people, particularly when it's very cold and particularly when it's very hot. When it's very cold, they don't necessarily feel it in time, and they can easily become hypothermic. And when it's hot, they have a harder time adjusting because they don't sweat as much and because they tend to not drink enough. Sleep changes. Sleep does change as you get older. You seem to sleep less soundly. There seem to be maybe changes in circadian rhythms, the night-day rhythms, with shorter sleeping cycles at night, and maybe a little bit of sleeping during the day then. Less defined rhythm, perhaps. Though, that's not been studied terribly much. And that is the end.